if you have a condition, it can give you hope that, well, if I lower my body burden, the condition might get better or resolve itself. We never, all chronic conditions have one component of it that is causal through the environment. That's not even a radical thing to say. At least, if you have lead exposure, it can impact your pancreas, it can impact blood sugar, it can impact Alzheimer's.
Welcome to the Deeper Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Howley. This is for everyone who's been dismissed, misdiagnosed, or told to just live with it and refuse to accept that answer. You're going to hear amazing patient recovery stories, raw and real in their own words. People who found answers after everything had failed them. You're going to hear from medical experts we trust that are pioneering new approaches to healing the body, because we deeply know we're designed to heal. Let's dig in. Welcome, everybody. I am super excited to have Nick Pineault here today, coming in from Canada. If you're not familiar with him, he is an amazing investigative journalist. And before that, he was an EMF expert. He has spent a long time in his career really educating families about the effects of EMF. And I mean, I'll let you speak to how you're broadening your scope, but he is the producer of the movie Body Burden, The Toxins We Carry. I just want to say out loud, you are creating a mission, an actual mission for people to understand what the heck is going on in the world. What I love about the movie so much is it takes a regular person, and when I say regular person, I mean those people that are just spending good money on toxic junk every day. I see them every day at the food store. And you literally take them on a journey that lets them go, oh, wait a minute. And it's an amazing awakening. It's an amazing awakening. Everybody should see this film. And so it's available. It's available for free. You can see it anytime. You sign up, you get it, you can stream it, you can watch it. It's great. Okay. So that just kind of lays the land for anyone who doesn't know about it. And we'll put all the links in the notes here. So Nick, tell me, give me a little bit of how you got here.
Well, I started 16 years ago writing about health. And at the beginning, it was really just an interest because I wanted to do bodybuilding. That's like my 2009
I didn't know
Nick
that.
that, I was 120 pounds, very thin. So I'm like, okay, I want to put on muscle mass. So I started following people online about food, nutrition, but very rapidly through watching a couple of documentaries. One of them is Food Matters or Food Inc. They talked about, pesticides and the contamination of our food supply. And I was very alarmed, as someone with a background in communications. So I was kind of on that path to journalism. Although I never ended up going to journalism school, I started doing copywriting professionally for TV. But at the same time, I knew that, writing for TV, I barely watched TV even at the time. So I knew it wasn't my calling. So on the side, I was starting a blog and, connecting with people online about nutrition. But really, my interest was environmental toxins. I
Love
felt
it.
like, okay, a lot of people talk about, carbohydrates and the importance of, I don't know, reducing your calorie if you want to lose weight. But I'm like, wait a minute, guys, there's a hormonal effect of certain substances that leach out of plastic containers called BPA, and it's replaced with BPS that is something even more toxic. You guys don't get it. And I was in that conversation in like 2010. No one really understood it except a small, a couple thousand people that were following my work at the time. And it kind of led me into talking about nutrition and many other topics. But I was talking about filtering water, the contamination in tap water, following, sometimes articles from the EWG, but sometimes following some of the health pioneers, Dr. Joseph Mercola, for example, and then discovering Children's Health Defense very early in my career, and then starting to read these other voices that were talking about how things are completely messed up. We are getting poison from the tap water to the air to the plastics to our clothing that's plastic. And I was like, oh my God, this is very overwhelming. And I
Mm.
started talking about it to try to distill it down in a way that is digestible on my newsletter. And eventually it led me into EMFs, which is a whole other can of worms. And I started in 2016 looking into it, looking into electromagnetic radiation emitted by cell phones and Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell towers. And when I I dug in that rabbit hole, reading one book after the. I did not know I would spend 10 years and counting on this almost exclusively. And yet here I am, 10 years later, have been talking about EMFs, have been, on hundreds of interviews, on stages. I was invited everywhere. And part of me was, for many years, I felt like an imposter because I'm like, I was early 30s or even late 20s, no former experience in EMFs, no former experience in journalism. Some people call me a blogger, and I'm like, what am I? I don't know. Like, I just want to talk about EMFs. Like, guys, this matters so much. And I was screaming from the rooftops. And then people started inviting me, like, hey, what have you discovered? And I'm like, well, I've discovered that, this is severely underfunded, that
Wow.
we should use precaution, that there is a synergy between EMFs and the cell phones and the Bluetooth in your home and all other environmental toxins. And it kind of led me into 2023. I got in touch with Dr. McCarter, who used to be at Deeper Healing, is now
Yeah.
in Dallas, practicing in Dallas, and she told me, Nick, I am seeing a lot of these people that follow you are what we can say, suffering from the EMR syndrome, used to be called electro hypersensitivity. And these people, many people do not understand what it's like because
Oh boy.
they had minor symptoms related to EMS, but some people have symptoms so major they cannot even live in a city. I mean,
I know.
some people can feel this sort of oppressive feeling or have weird heartbeats or start, feeling this stress response even with just one single phone in a room. This
Wow.
is how bad it is for some of these people. And some of these people wrote to me in the last 10 years and they said, Nick, I'm getting worse. I don't know
Right.
what to do. And I said, well, look, I'm just a citizen journalist. I'm going to send you to doctors, but I don't know which one understand it. And some people in functional medicine understood EMFs a little bit. But then I found that people like Dr. Neil Nathan and, Lynn Patrick talked about EMFs, and she was from environmental medicine. And then Dr. Stephanie McCarter also was from environmental medicine. I said, what is this environmental medicine? Look, I didn't hear a lot about it. And then Dr. McCarter said, look, I am at the Deeper Healing Medical Center. Come and see what we're doing. It is different. And we are seeing people with environmental poisoning. We're getting them better, which is a rare thing to hear from my perspective of journalists, because most people have this narrative when they are environmentally injured, they're essentially doomed, right? The environment made me sick, like I had mold toxicity, and now my health will never recover. And I discovered through, the different stories I heard like that, and then other stories who told me, no, I was able to recover and I used XYZ or this other thing, or I saw, 1,000 different doctors and I kind of had my own journey, but I was able to come back to a relatively good level of health. So I said, okay, well, one thing is for sure, if you are environmentally injured or you have, any chronic issue, maybe you haven't found the path to recovery, but I haven't, so far I haven't really, I don't believe in, okay, you are doomed to something. Even, I mean,
Correct.
I saw people with stage 4 cancer tell me, no, no, I was able to heal. So I said,
Yeah.
okay, well, at a minimum, we could say maybe you don't have a lot of chance if you have stage 4 cancer, but there is one chance. And, it's not guaranteed. It's not that, okay, this magic pill will heal you, but we have to keep the hope. So
I
my
wanna I
visit
wanna
that,
add to that
yeah,
because you
yeah,
just said
please.
something so important, and I'm seeing this a lot where people are coming in with their genetic testing. I feel like it's the shiny object right now. It's like, "I'm gonna get my genetics tested."
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they're looking for, like, these SNPs or these predispositions to disease, and literally they're like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna get cancer. Oh my god, I'm gonna get Alzheimer's. Oh my god, I can't
yeah,
detox." Whatever the thing is. You see people doing dramatic, proactive, preventative things on a genetic test. And this is what they're saying is genetics is the gun, but environment's pulling the trigger. And the good news is if it is environment, there's a ton that can be done. There's a ton that can be done. You are not destined for any of these diseases. And it's actually that is the hopeful conversation. That's the hopeful conversation of this movie, body burden. It's like, what's your body burden? And maybe, and even I see a lot of this too. My kid just got diagnosed with diabetes. They're telling me it's genetic, but we don't have any diabetes on either side of our family. How is it genetic?
What?
I've heard that like literally a
It's so
hundred times in the
incredible.
last year.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and then why are all these kids getting diabetes all of a sudden? Well, are we genetically defective all of a sudden? No, that's not it. So there's a much bigger picture, bigger onion to unpeel back. And that's what I love about people who are seeing this film is it takes you on a journey. And the EMF people, I feel like the EMF people are so far down the tunnel that I always say, like, if you're feeling the electromagnetic stuff, because that's a much smaller percentage, or that are cognizant of it, that they recognize that it's happening, I should say. I think it's affecting everybody, but they're usually their bucket's really high, but their body burden's really high. They have a
Yep.
lot of other stuff going on, and I think that's what you really unveiled in this conversation and even your own self-discovery.
Well, it was
And
kind of it was my hope to, why I decided to go. First, it was an interesting proposition. Like, okay, let me go there, and then we started thinking
do a
about a
deep dive.
documentary. I'm like, well, what if I discover like one of the places in the world where they can get people with electro hypersensitivity better? Isn't that something? Like everyone keeps telling me on my newsletter that it's impossible. At a minimum, it's not like they have found, a magic bullet, but they have an approach, right? This approach of environmental medicine, I know that they're getting right because I know Dr. McCarter, and then I met Dr. B, and clearly the physicians there, when I entered the place, I'm like, okay, these guys know
They're legit.
everything is done the right way. So at a minimum, it's a good example of like how to get things right. And I know that even, among environmental medicine, there's always practitioners that try to push the envelope. And some of them are, I've been told Switzerland, Germany. I know deeper healing is one of these places too, because Dr. McCarter and then Dr. B told me, well, we have practitioners from functional medicine or from environmental medicine that go see what we do. And that's the thing with environmental medicine. It's like, it's one of these things. When I started to look into it and look into what Dr. Ray did, what Dr. Crinian brought, and it's like it's something that has been developing, but not nearly enough because the environment, it is developing at a snail's pace, but the environment is becoming poisonous and more poison at a rapid pace. So it's something where a lot of it is cutting edge, new modalities that they are trying, and they see the clinical proof and they move forward. So it was
We do
super
that all the
interesting for
time.
me to just look at, okay, what is kind of the cutting edge of environmental medicine? But this entire project was not supposed to be about anything about me, to be honest.
I know.
So what happened is, in the documentary, we see my results like a year before, a year after I film.
Wait,
In
before you go down there,
Yeah,
hold
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Because I wanna make sure we cover this in this podcast. This project wasn't even supposed to be a movie. It was
No.
originally it was supposed to be a little reveal at an EMF summit. It was supposed to be short. It was supposed to be like, "Hey, Nick comes in,
Yeah,
we follow what he does a big reveal." And then all of a sudden, it really was over the course of a year organically when you did that. You came in, you had your testing
yeah,
and
that's
your
true. Yeah,
detoxification. Because I almost forgot, I had to think about it. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, this thing became so much bigger." Then when you were here, you started talking to patients, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, I was in a wheelchair before.
yeah,
Yeah, I was,
incredible.
really, really like the worst cases." And then they're recovered and you're like, "Wait, I want to interview them. Wait a minute. I want to know what happened. That story is really interesting to me." So all of a sudden now it's your story, but then it's like that woman's story with her daughter and that person's story and that guy's story and everyone's story, their diagnoses, their everything was very, very different symptomatically and manifestation wise, but all recovering. So let's capture these stories and go, okay, and the other like the link that binds them all together is they were all told nothing could be done. Nothing
Yeah,
can be done and you're stuck with this and your whatever things they were doing and they were pretty much hopeless. And here now they're on the other side of it. So you're like, no, I think this is maybe a short movie where you I combine this together and then all of a sudden as one interview, another interview, another interview, another interview, all of a sudden this turns into Bill Ray, Walter Crinion, environmental godfathers, legacy movie taking the audience on a journey and then showing the authentic proof that it's working. Recovery is possible,
Yeah,
even
and
when you've been told it's not.
100%. And it's not even that. I have to shout out, Mike Schatz, that with Horizon, that did an incredible job. Obviously, was
Amazing.
the filmmaker behind this. Still doing edits today. We're still texting back and forth because it's still preparing the movie. But I feel like not only it's as part of his vision when he saw the material and started working, and then we, all together, it was kind of a collective project, starting to intertwine the storyline where I go to the clinic, which is, I think, a cool thing to see, but there's not really the human aspect. All of a sudden, when I saw the interviews, many of them I cried
Right.
listening to them, and
I
I'm like,
cried.
I mean, for me it's Brendan. I think it's probably because I just see myself in like 10 years,
Yes.
a little bit more gray. The guy couldn't remember his friends' names. And just that part, forgetting about things that are important to you, it just gets to me. I'm like, oh my God, imagine if it happened that soon. In like, my late 40s, all of a sudden I can't even remember my old buddies from primary school and that I see every year. I'm like, oh my God, this
He
is
was losing
so.
everything. He was losing
Yeah,
everything. He was losing his business, his
it
ability to
touched me.
think.
But what I wanted to say is that in the end, when I filmed the documentary and then did, follow up testing and got my testing results, this is when I got the testing results. It took probably a week or two after filming. I was back home in Montreal and I saw the PDFs and we had a call with Dr. McCarter. And I was like, wait a minute, are you telling me I have like these lead levels? And I did have brain fog. I did have acne that has now pretty much resolved at this point, that can flare back sometimes, but I had brain fog, just very poor ability to concentrate at a computer, and it was getting worse. So in the end, it was a little bit for me, and I'm like, well, I don't have a condition. I'm not diagnosed with anything. In fact, I did some testing, some basic testing, and my hair mineral analysis was very good. So I had been eating mostly organic for what, 15 years. I mean, I was very early to all these precautionary measures from
Yeah,
environmental medicine. But even then, I find the lead super elevated and the mercury fairly elevated and mycotoxins. And it made me realize, geez, it's going to turn into something else. So in the end, because the editing process took a long time, I was able to film what is my own conclusion a year after. And I'm just in a much better place
very
mentally.
powerful,
And
very
that's the thing
powerful.
that's powerful. Look, if you have a condition, it can give you hope that, well, if I lower my body burden, the condition might get better or resolve itself. We never, like, all chronic conditions have one component of it that is causal through the environment. That's not even a radical thing to say. At
No,
least, if you have lead exposure, it can impact your pancreas, it can impact blood sugar, it can impact Alzheimer. Like, we know all these things,
mhm,
but the science is severely lacking to make the link between all these different environmental toxins, how they play with each other, and then how that in turn will impact your risk of chronic disease. But if we
correct.
push the chronic disease aside, how are you underperforming in your life? I realized, oh my God, I was like, mildly excited about projects, going through the motions. I mean, it was, I have to tell you, Danielle, and that's not something, it's kind of, it's almost funny because we talk almost every month, sometimes,
Yeah,
just to organize things and business meetings, but we haven't, updated each other about me personally. But at one point, I had to rewatch the movie and I cried because I realized, where was I?
where I was. Yep,
It's powerful. It's only after the fact, once your brain fog lifts, you have to deal with the fact that, like, why was I behaving a certain way? Like, feeling depressed,
my gosh.
not answering people for weeks because I felt overwhelmed, and maybe not being as present with my wife as I wanted to be, and being, mildly happy at a maximum and mildly unhappy most of the time. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? Right?
Yeah,
Like, I just, because if your brain is not online, and me as an entrepreneur, I have to deal with my business growth, with my personal organizations. Like, no one looks after me, no one
Right,
pays me a salary. So I have a
right,
stressful life, and I have
right.
to be on to be able to grow each aspect. And I wasn't really doing a good job at it all. And I was feeling quite overwhelmed, even through the video shoot and everything. It's just I was dealing with so many things and in this sort of anxious energy. And now I'm just in a much better place where, to be fair, I'm not necessarily calmer. I feel like I'm getting overexcited about,
But that's you.
research.
That's
That's
your
like the passion.
personality.
But I'm able to just show up more in
Yes.
every single aspect of my life. And that is not, curing a disease per
No.
se or anything like that, but it's precious. It's something that I think everyone listening to this probably want for themselves.
Yes. Do you know how many guys, and in fact, I just dropped 2 podcasts that are, one guy's name is Stark and one guy's name is Chip. And they both talk about this for men. They're both like, I have a business, I'm a high performer, I have a wife, I have kids, I have all this stuff, and their pressure. And they were like, I didn't realize how bad I was until I was better, because you get there slowly, right? The decline is almost imperceptible. It's like, I'm moodier, I'm a little more tired. And then you have people like, oh, you're getting older. Oh, you're getting in your 30s. Oh, you're getting in your 40s. And all of a sudden you're just like, this is me now. You almost like look back at an old picture and be like, oh yeah, I used to be so much more, whatever, energetic. But when you come out on the other side of it, you really feel it because you're doing it somewhat quickly where the decline's very long and sloggy. And like both of the guys said this separately. They're like, I wish I didn't wait so long. I wish I didn't wait till I was broken. Like that was the gift that you got. You were on a slow decline, but you weren't broken. You caught it and you were like, okay, yeah. I'm like, and now you're like, whoa, I didn't even realize how bad I was. When I talk to regular people, they're all sluggish. Why is everyone, I say they're propping their eyes up with Adderall and coffee, like literally. And we're not meant to lose our, like, I've had people like, I want it's between the bun with cheese. I'm like, a hamburger? They're like, yeah, I want a hamburger. They can't think of the word. Like
Mm.
like you said, you can't think of your friend's name. You can't think, and you're like, your brain's not working, but you're like, what's going on with me? You know, it's not normal. It's not normal. And
Yeah.
it can be very, very different. And the movie's amazing at showing that.
Yeah, and you know what I realize is the more brain capacity you unlock, if you can remove some of this toxic sludge. And to be fair, I mean, my latest test a year and a half later, when it comes to lead, it is primarily stored in bones. And in
Well,
fact, I've started, now I have more mental capacity to look at, wait a minute, I have this lead in my body. What could it impact? Blood sugar regulation, which is a problem for me. I have, pancreas inflammatory markers are high. And I was like, what is that? And part of it is mold also that can
yeah,
also have a link with the pancreas. So anyway, I'm learning about what is this burden doing to my body, but I have more mental capacity to think about how I used to think and to solve my problems. And that's the kind of loop that I realized I was in, is where your mental capacity declines, and then your ability to get out of this rut declines too at the same time. So for some people, it is spiraling down and down and down, and eventually you're like, well, anyway, health is kind of set in stone. I'm getting older. You
yes.
don't have clarity about the fact that, wait a minute, something is wrong here, and maybe I should seek help. But then, are you finding the right help, right?
Then
And
it's finding the right help. Oh my God, I
it's
hear this
tough. It's
all.
tough.
It's
Yeah.
so hard. And this is why everyone's on there buying their supplements from the TikTok shop because they're watching some reel in bed while they're kind of half out of
Yeah.
it. You're like, oh, that girl said it was great. I'm going to order it $30, and it's like, this is where people are. This is where people are. They're just desperate for like, just some guidance,
Yeah.
like,
And
what do I do?
I feel, Danielle, like maybe if I could have redone the movie, I would have done it a little bit differently. Some people told me, "Oh, I wish, throughout the documentary you would have learned more things and things like that." Maybe, but at the end, I wanted to leave people with practical steps, because what has been the biggest impact for me, the visit at Deeper Healing was like, what 3 4 days of treatment. That's not enough to lower a
Mm-mm.
body burden. It has to be the work afterwards. So for me, for example, if I could tell a single thing that made the difference, is a year and a half of 3 saunas per week.
Huge,
45 minutes, I
huge.
sweat, my butt off. And It's a non-negotiable. And when I didn't start right away, I was, again, even knowing the test results, it was tough to incorporate that. And every morning I go and pick up and go drive Elliot to school. And right afterwards, I have a place where I do the sauna and I wipe myself off exactly the way I've learned from environmental medicine physicians. And I've been doing it. And I feel like it's probably one of the strongest modalities I've used. I've used a lot of other things, but at least that is a constant of like, okay, now at least I'm opening this excretion pathway that before, I mean, to be fair, I told it, I was, I think, very honest in the documentary. I think my sauna use before was something like 6 times per year, you know, and it was just completely insufficient. How can you move the needle if you just open your detox pathways that way, like 6 times per year? It doesn't work. And then I started learning about the recommendations of environmental medicine physicians. And I even, looked at this study where Dr. Walter Crinion would take certain patients that are so sick, he would have them under physician supervision, to be fair, but twice per day was the sauna routine for some of these people short term. So he had specific ways of saying, okay, these people are so overwhelmed with toxins that we have to find other excretion pathways. So, anyway, it's just like consistency is really what I learned from this entire experience.
Yes.
It's consistency in what if in what you drink, your tap water, is it filtered? Is it not? It's consistency in what you breathe. Is the air full of toxins or is it cleaner? And it's consistency in what you do. Do you move your body? So I've been just steadily getting better and more disciplined on these things that I know will work.
I think the lifestyle stuff can't be minimized. And one of the things of the deeper healing mission is, to help heal the sick, but to prevent everyone else from becoming so. And two of the things that I want the listeners to hear is, because these are free and they're just things you can just incorporate. We just created the body burden assessment, which is what are my body burden? Like, it's going to ask you, it's a quiz, it's free, like I think it's 38 questions, and you can get a report for free on like what are your issues and it does two things. One, it helps them become aware by the questions themselves. Like, yeah, do I run the exhaust fan for 20 to 30 minutes to an hour after I shower, or do I even have an exhaust fan? As just one example. And then the other thing is just what you said: clean air, clean water, clean food. Using your money to, like, people say to me all the time, like, is a Brita filter any good? Is my refrigerator filter any good? It's really hard to find what is an actual good product. So we have the guidebook for free that just has, like, how do you figure out what's in your water? All the links are live. If you're on a well, you test it this way. If you're a municipality, this is where you get your report. And just knowing what you're dealing with. And then you're like, okay, my water's crap. What's great is you can get a report from any municipality. Then you know your water's crap. Well, then how am I going to filter it? Okay, well, here's the cheap way, and here's a whole house filter. So, like, these are things, and like you said, everyone starts off overwhelmed. Just do one thing at a time. I'm just going to get my water cleaned up. I'm going to start using a sauna. I'm going to do better buying organic, whatever it is. You start. And because you were already down the road, so was I. Then I found my lead. I have a very similar story. Now I've been chipping away at my lead. My brain functions better. And I know, like, yeah, I'm 50, but guess what? I'm not worried about aging because I'm looking under the hood. Everyone deserves that. I say it all the time. I saw some TikTok guy, like, everyone, if you haven't checked your metals yet, it's true. He's right. Everyone deserves that before they're, in the memory care facility in their 70s. They deserve to know, like, do I have an issue? I believe this movie is elevating, and COVID is a big gift of that, of really knowing that you're on your own and you got to be vigilant about what you're doing. No one's out there protecting you. You got to protect your family. And how am I going to do that? Clean air, clean food, clean water. That's the easy start.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and those resources are out there. When I always say, like, people ask me a million times about this one and that one, just like the EMF stuff. There's a lot of marketing, There's a lot of chatter, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of confusion. So it's best to get your advice from people who have really gone down the rabbit hole like you have and kind of know like, okay, at least if I'm going to spend money on something, I know that it's going to work. And this is the world we're in. And what I think is funny is I still talk to people who are like, are there really toxins? I mean, really? I'm like, oh,
That's
dear
true.
mother of God.
That's true. And you know what I've been doing in the last, I must say, 2 months is organizing my research database. A lot of it using AI because I had, too many documents, too many. And the more I dig into what is accumulating in the human body, the more alarmed I am
I know.
because I didn't know. I looked into PFAS with a half life of what is it, 9 years or 5 years, years in the body with excretion routes that are very difficult and it doesn't go out in sweat that easily. And then you look, okay, well, this is just one class of things. What about lead stored in bones? Okay, it's stored in bones. Is it stable in bones? No. There is a bone turnover that is natural. There is a 20 something day cycle. So that lead will leave your body, recirculate to wreak havoc, and then restore in bones. And I'm like, oh my God. So you're not even protected. It's not like your lead in bone is just hanging out there and you're like, oh yes, it's stored at least. It is stored, but it's also wreaking havoc. And then of course it's not just stored in bones, it could be in other tissues. And it's something that is not even controversial to say that lead is extremely neurotoxic. And I'm like, I'm saying this now and I'm like, uh-oh. I'm alarmed myself at what I'm saying, right? So the reality is that it's extremely uncontroversial to say that we each have a body burden. We don't know to what
100%.
extent. No one has the probably the budget or the time to test for every single chemical that exists. It's not even that useful, but we have to, I think, a framework where you say, okay, I surely have more toxins in my body than I should. The amount that should be there is near zero, right? It should be, I mean, back in the ancestral times, it wouldn't be these modern exposures. So all of them need to go to as close to zero as possible. So everyone can therefore benefit from looking at strategies that are time tested, strategy of avoidance by filtering out, your
Avoidance.
water, avoidance, the strategy of opening up detox pathways by moving your body or by, sweating more. Like these things are not controversial either. What is controversial, I think, is just health authorities are still completely stuck in a paradigm that was never useful to start with, but like studying one single toxin and the impact on one single disease category. We are so far
We're
behind.
so far behind.
So the reality, yes, and it's a sad and dramatic reality, is that it's up to us to take control of that and to be loud, because eventually I have great hope, and I'm trying to connect with the right people, that environmental medicine needs to make it to public health in a big
Correct.
way, because the population is not getting better. And while we have all these different tools, I hear about peptides and that, and yeah, maybe some of them can help alleviate symptoms, but the fundamentals need to include environmental medicine. This is what I'm convinced about, and it needs to include EMFs. And that's part of what excites me is, the physicians know about toxic exposures and they know the importance of the environment, and then the importance of removing the bad stuff from the body, bringing the good in. And I just feel like this is a paradigm that needs to make it everywhere. So
And it's been
that's my hope that,
it,
the movie will contribute to that at
me
least a
too.
little bit.
It's a mission. And it's been interesting over the past 2 years. We've had a lot of physicians referring their patients to deeper healing. They are recognizing, I don't know what to do with this patient. They're super sick and I'm not trained in environment. I don't know what to do with it. Like, I don't know what to do. And I know I'm out of my depth, with this person. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. So they're really starting the educated physician, practitioner, naturopath, nurse practitioner, they're really starting to recognize, okay, this is a missing part of what I've learned. And I really think that we're barreling towards this becoming part of medical education, this becoming part of naturopathic education, that environmental medicine will actually be one of the categories that you can specialize in and know deeply because as you said, we're an epidemic of people who are sick from environmental factors. And then where do you go? What do you do? You know? I mean, we're talking to people all over the world and they're like, there's nowhere to go. It's nuts. It's really, really nuts. So I do think that has been the greatest gift of COVID. I think it's been a really big gift. I love the work that like Food Babe is doing. Like
Me
the
too.
people who are really like taking something, like whether it's Roundup or they're taking on the EMFs, like you, or taking on the food or taking on the food dyes or taking on just one aspect of what's going on. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much cleaning up we do, which you're doing and I'm doing personally, I'm still living in the same world as everyone else. So this is why you need regular sauna because you could sit here and do a bunch of rejuvenates and get your body, get your organs all cleaned out. But guess what? You're back out in the world again. So we also have to fight the fight of we don't want this in our world. We don't want PFAS in our world. You know, watching the movie, I'll never forget when I watched The Devil We Know, which was it's a movie, it's years old, but it was about the PFAS journey. And you get to the end of the movie, and they're basically like, this can't be removed from the body. It has a super long life in the world. And they just changed the name and they're still doing it. You're like, what? Like, you're like, are you kidding me right now? You think you're watching something that's going to have a nice bow at the end? Like, oh, and it's all better now. No, not.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think a lot of people who feel overwhelmed are kind of like, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look at that. And I
Hmm.
was like, I say to people all the time, like, hey, I get it. Ignorance is bliss. I miss it dearly, but it doesn't make it untrue if you ignore it, right? It's still
Yeah.
happening whether you ignore it or not. So you can do something about it or not, and you will pay the price or not, you know? So I like to be an educated person. I like to choose my toxins. I choose my toxins. I like to choose nail polish and Chardonnay, but I don't want to choose a cleaner and a toothpaste. You know, I want those things to not hurt me. So, you know, I think that's what everyone's doing, even with the food, you know. Do you have to eat perfectly clean all the time? No, you can have joy. You can have ice cream. You can have everybody has their thing. And it's not about not living, you know. It's about having a long life well lived. And that's what I love about the movie. Nikki did such a good job. Michael did such a good job. I'm very proud of the film and I'm really going to shout it from the rooftops. Everyone needs to see that movie. They need to understand for their benefit of their children, their families and their future and fight the fight every day. Not just Food Babe and not just there are these people who are really fighting hard, but we need to sign their petitions and get behind them as well. Like we don't want this. We don't want it. We don't want it in our world and we deserve better.
Exactly, and I feel like the movie is filling kind of a gap in that entire conversation of we're getting poisoned. Yes, we are, and we have to fight against the polluters, including,
Correct.
for me, it's the telecoms. For Food Babe, it's like Monsanto and
Right.
these pesticide corporations. But what do we do in the meantime to start undoing some of the damage that we have inside us? And that's kind of the accumulation of that body burden. And I feel like there's not a lot of people who talk about that framework that exists, and it's not a 7 day just a green smoothie diet. It's not that. It requires just a certain framework, and that framework is environmental medicine. I'm convinced of it. I just hope that many people start looking into it, and at a minimum start taking their personal intake of toxins more seriously
Yes.
and do what they can to get them out. And I know it is a daunting journey, but for a lot of people, they told me, okay, well, at least now I know and I'm inspired to do
To take a
more and
chance.
see if I can feel better, right? Because in the end, I want to spin it as a positive here. It's not
Correct.
just about, removing these toxins and, blaming these polluters. It's also, can you feel better now while you have
Done.
a life to live,
You
right?
can.
And
Yes, I
you can,
can.
you can.
You
I
can.
certainly, I am the example. And if you tell me that maybe in 2 years I'll feel even cleaner here, especially in my mind, I'll be unstoppable. Like I love it. I love the possibility of just feeling better and better and better. And it makes you able when you're cleaner in your head, makes you able to cope with the fact that,
Everything.
yeah, it is a messed up world.
Yeah.
Yes, we are, the pollution is there, and there's a lot of injustice. The huge march against Monsanto people versus poison yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look at what
How it
happened. I
went.
know
Yeah.
so many thousands of people,
Ama
are fighting against this nonsense. But the thing is, if you clean yourself up and you become, have more mental capacity, then you can contribute even more. So we have to work on that individually to be able to contribute to this world.
the end of the day, we vote with our dollars. We vote with our money. Like Dr. B says all the time, he's like, there's the mirror and the window. And I love that. He's like, you can't control what's going on outside the window, but you can control what's going on in front of the mirror. So what do you do with that? You control how you spend your money. You control what you bring into your environment, and you control, you know, your daily decisions. How am I going to live my life? And your health is priceless. And everyone agrees on that. Everyone agrees on that. And the more that we just shed the overwhelm and just take it one step at a time, I'm going to switch out this for that. And there's loads of help out there. And I would say the easiest, quickest thing to do is take the toxin quiz. See what your areas are. Okay, it'll tell you for free what's your number one driver, what's your number two driver, what can you do about that today? These are resources right at your fingertips. They take minutes. So these are things that are available to help guide you down the right path. And as we continue these conversations, not just Nick and Danielle and Deeper Healing and Dr. McCarter and all the pioneers that are out there, Dr. McCullough, everybody, it's going to just become more mainstream. People are going to have a better understanding. They're going to make better decisions, which is going to change the market. That's what changes the market. That's what changes things permanently. And that's when everyone's load goes down. So I think that's a great way to close it up. If you have not signed up to see this movie, Body Burden, the Toxins We Carry, that is a 1 hour of your life that is worth it. I know you guys are all watching shows, binge watching shows that aren't changing your life. This can change your life. And then there's an 8-minute quiz that'll help you determine what you need to do. If you're really sick out there, Deeper Healing's there to help you. And every day, everyone needs to make better lifestyle choices. And Nick, you're a shining example of what can happen. What can happen and how every aspect of your life can benefit your marriage, your parenting, your work, everything. And that's what we all want. We all want quality life. I mean, it's as simple as that. You're amazing. I'm very grateful to you. I'm very grateful that, who knocks on the door and says, can I make a movie about what you're doing? My
I
friend.
don't know. Yeah, it was kind of
Nobody.
crazy.
That is kind of crazy. Deeper Healing did not sponsor this movie. This is Nick Pineault made this
Yeah,
movie, and
yeah.
it's to help as many people as possible wake up. So good job. Good job. Amazing work. And I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Danielle. Thanks for having me. And I hope that people learn a thing or two and help spread the word to everyone they know, of course.
So I want to add one more thing. I want to also mention we have a foundation. The other thing that comes up all the time is the cost. And I can tell you for Deeper Healing, we're all about getting people what they need. So if someone cannot afford it, we have a foundation where patients pay it forward and we pay it forward by putting into a foundation to help pay for people who cannot afford it, because everyone deserves to live their best life. So I got to put that plug in there. Okay. Sign up for the movie. All the links are going to be below. And Nick, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Danielle. It's a pleasure.
We hope this episode inspired you. Here's how to go deeper. Visit deeperhealing.com to become a patient. Online, we have loads of courses and a free toxin quiz. Subscribe and please, please share this episode with someone who needs it. It's always that one-on-one support that really gets people to find deeper healing. Remember, this is educational content, not medical advice. The information shared here should be discussed with your own personal healthcare provider. If you're excited by listening to the medical experts or the personal recovery stories on here and you want to start your own deeper healing journey, go to deeperhealing.com and start your process.